Welcome back, Leominsterites. This is your state representative, Natalie Higgins, here for the first episode of Representing Leominster in 2023, and I couldn't be happier to be joined by our state senator, John Cronin. And so I did not want to start this session off any other way than chatting with our senator and hearing, how did your first term in office go?
It was good. First things first, the intro to your show is much better than the intro to my show. So I don't know who did it, but yeah.
You're gonna put Fitchburg Access on notice.
No, you know what? It was my staff. It was my staff. But
well, shout out to Leominster Access TV for making us look great every time we come into the studio.
They're doing everything, at least everything they can do with me. Yeah. So I appreciate it. But no, the first term was such a learning experience, and I think everybody goes through it.
We all warn you.
Yeah, and I was warned. But I think you go into the State House, and I had never been in the building until after I was elected. So it was a lot of fun getting to meet colleagues, and then just understanding, you know, really at a deeper level how things move. You know, how to build coalitions, how to advocate for things. You know, we are in the asking business, how to do your due diligence to advocate for policies that matter. And
when a door closes, how to find that window.
Right, yeah. And so all of that was really rewarding. And I think I came away from the first 2 years pretty optimistic about how impactful you can be. And, you know, our legislature in Massachusetts is one that that works and collaborates across partisan lines, but it's also possible to have an impact and to matter and to kind of carry forward the things you care about. So I enjoyed learning on-the-job training, if you will, and I'm really optimistic about what we can accomplish together in the future here.
Yeah, and we're really lucky in North Central Mass to have a really strong delegation, and you know, that's kind of like part because we all get along, but also because we have to get attention out in North Central Mass. We just can't. I always remind folks we can't compete with the Boston delegation. There's just too many of them.
Too many votes, right?
And so how do we work together to try to find out that commonality? And it's really cool to be able to work with you all in the Senate, to work across party lines, to have our only independent member of the legislature in Susanna Whips. And I think the North Central delegation has like a special sauce that we bring to the table to get real work done.
Yeah, I think you put your finger on it. You can't do anything unless you have dance partners, and you need partnerships both in your own chamber and across the House and the Senate. And I don't think anybody does that as well as North Central Massachusetts. And I think one place that you specifically have been so successful is, you know, rallying people around our gateway cities, and especially funding for public education too, which I think we have really seen a sea change here in Leominster and the same in Fitchburg over the past 2 or 3 years. And those increases in investment with the Student Opportunity Act are going to continue, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, and I'm excited to have you in a partner to make sure that full implementation of that funding formula, we're not done until the whole formula is implemented. But I also want to lift up, I've been so glad to have you working on the mental health issues that are just really so deep in our community, to be able to team up with new members to really do a roundtable and look at our communities in the 3 cities to figure out, like, what are those mental health needs? What are folks looking for? How do we make sure the systems that exist are actually working together?
Right. There's no shortage of political will, and I'm not sure that that's always been the case too. But I think, especially as we've emerged from the pandemic, you know, people really realize how many shortfalls we have in our mental health treatment system. And I'd point to 2 things that we were able to accomplish last session. The first is, and the problem to me is not simple. It's very complicated, but to break it down into simple terms, it's insufficient reimbursement rates. People who provide these services lose money. And number 2, we just don't have the mental health treatment workforce between, you know, whether it's peer recovery all the way up to psychiatrists and everything in between. So one thing that the House and the Senate worked on and we got done and we got to Governor Baker was, you know, nearly $130 million in scholarships and loan repayment to build that mental health workforce for the future. And then the second was $400 million to raise reimbursement rates. That it's not sufficient. You know, there's no magic wand. I think, and just think of how long it takes to train a psychiatrist from, let's say, from the day they graduate college to
being able to accept patients.
Absolutely. Right? I mean, it's a 10-year on-ramp for some of these specialties. But those are investments we're making now, and the goal is really simple. It's to provide treatment to people who need it, and to make sure it's accessible and affordable to everybody in our community. And that's not the case right now, but I do believe some of the investments that we're making today are going to change that in the future, or at the very least get us going in the right direction.
Yeah, we're spending a lot of money on mental health care and mental health care that's not working. We know that Leominster Hospital has some of the highest boarding rates of mental health patients who we just can't find a bed with the providers to meet their needs, to really get them into actual care. And so I'm hoping, I know that there's a lot of interest in both the House and the Senate to take up kind of a healthcare bill to try to figure out how do we spend our money more efficiently and get it into the right places so that we're actually addressing the issue, especially for our youngest residents, because it's our kiddos and our
Right.
teens that are experiencing the longest time boarding in the ER. And for folks who aren't familiar with that, when you board in the ER, you're waiting for treatment, you're waiting for a bed, and you're not getting the mental health care treatment that you need, which is a really huge challenge.
And kids are in there for days, weeks, months, right? I mean,
months.
yeah, right. So not something that I think is acceptable to any of us. One model that is being implemented right now is the community health center models, and we have one with CHL, but there are 25 kind of local places across the state, and Community Health Link in Leominster is one of those. So I'm excited about the. I think that is going to translate into increased availability for services, and we're also changing the way we pay for services, which again we needed to do. So I think bundling payments for the spectrum of supports that people who are in a mental health crisis or who are going and transitioning to outpatient treatment need is really important, and I'm excited that that's happening here in Leominster too.
Yeah. One of the other areas that you've been working in that I'm really excited about what you've already accomplished is kind of vocational education, access, and also advanced manufacturing, an extension of that. Can you talk a little bit about what you were able to accomplish in the last session and what you're looking forward to in the new session?
It's such a Leominster story too. I think if you look back at what was the lifeblood of the economy here in Leominster for so long, it's manufacturing, it's plastics, it's injection molding, and that those aren't just. That's not just a legacy industry. That is still the lifeblood here of North Central Massachusetts and in our local and regional economy. We have more than twice as many manufacturing jobs than any other region in the state. And so it's really important for all of us to make sure that we're sustaining that sector and sustaining it by making sure that we have workers available. So this is, you find a niche for yourself, I think, in the legislature, and this is something that I've really found that I'm passionate about, and I think it's important work with really important local implications at no place more than Fitchburg and Leominster. But you know this better than anybody, Representative. Everybody we talk to, whether it's a small business, a medium or large scale industry, they're desperate for a skilled and trained workforce. They're desperate to hire people, and they're offering high wages and really good careers. And so to me, there's this disconnect at the local level, and there's a disconnect really across the Commonwealth between kids who don't have access to vocational training or programming, and a workforce on the other side, right, that is just hungry and cannot find the people that they need, not just to sustain their businesses, but to grow, and that's what we want. And if we're unable to meet that challenge, that industry and those high-paying jobs and those middle-class careers are going to go somewhere else. So it's high stakes. One thing that I'm really proud of working with yourself and Representative Kushmerek with over the past 2 years was implementing innovation pathways. So right now in North Central Massachusetts, there's about 350 seats at Montytech. There's about 700 applicants. And Leominster is special because Leominster has the great vocational programs right there at the comprehensive high school. But all the other places in the region don't have that. So it's tougher to get into Montytech right now than most state universities, certainly our community colleges. And so we have this huge wait list and this huge list of 14 or 15-year-old kids who want to access vocational training and can't. So innovation pathways programs is something that we got into the state budget for the first time 2 years ago. and it's regionally and locally aligned vocational programming and skills training across advanced manufacturing, healthcare, IT, where kids can go in during the day and get a curriculum in the classroom, and then go out and use those skills in the local and regional job market. So we got that for $600,000 in the budget 2 years ago. It was $5 million last year, and that's translated into more than 70 programs across the state. So
That's
something
awesome.
something that we're really proud of,
Yeah.
and I think that's the model to expand those types of programs, which again connect young people who maybe aren't going to college or who aren't sure what's next when they're juniors and seniors in high school, and connecting them with the skills they need to succeed in the local and the regional economy. So really important work and exciting, I think, right? I mean, that's what we do, is not partisan. Nobody's against those programs. Nobody's against that. And those are the things we've been able to work across the aisle to achieve, and it's been pretty rewarding.
So you came into your first session in the middle of a pandemic and kind of a continued hybrid working environment. Is there anything that you think worked really well that you're hoping you might continue as we kind of like move into this kind of post-COVID or continuing with COVID world?
I am so glad to be off of Zoom. Like, it is so good just to be in-person meetings, to be able to meet people in person here in the district. The State House is a completely different place right now than it was 2 years ago. I was sworn in on January 6th, 2021. I wasn't allowed in the building. We were sworn in outside. And there was obviously a lot going on that day across the country. So the building was empty. I wasn't allowed to have guests into the office or the chamber. Things are back to normal right now. We were sworn in the chamber. Last week, I was able to have, my mom, my grandfather, my family was there, which sharing that experience with your loved ones is pretty special. But I think the camaraderie amongst colleagues too, this is a people business, and it's all about relationships, and it's a lot easier to be effective when you're running into people face-to-face in person.
It's a lot easier to move. You will notice it's a lot easier to move our bills too, because there's times where you just like need 2 minutes, like less than 2 minutes to get your face in front of a chair,
right?
A chair of a committee to say like, hey, I have this bill. Do you have any questions? Here's a little more information about it. And it can be really hard to get on their calendar. But when you're on the House or Senate floor for a while, and you've got
it's easier to corner people.
Yeah,
right?
It's easier to like make sure they're not ignoring your emails or calls. But it just helps. And that to your point, like, I have no idea what it's like to be in the Senate. You have 39 other colleagues to manage. We have 159 other colleagues to like get to know. And there's a lot of change. You have 5 new members.
5 new members, and 8 since I was elected. So
that's a lot
of turnover. Yeah, it's like nearly 20%. Don't try that on a calculator. I'm not sure if that's 20%.
So,
next question. Yeah.
but always, right, like that relationship building, and it's evolving, and you'll notice that because folks stay around, so staff moves. There's a lot of institutional knowledge with staff, and they move in and outside of the building, and there can be resources. But getting to know folks, I'm really excited. I was saying to Isabel before, the new chief of staff for Governor Healy was my supervisor when I was working for Governor Patrick when I was in law school, and she's fantastic. And her deputy is now the head of cabinet affairs. And so it's like, it has been 10 years, and these folks are still doing amazing work. And it's really cool to see people who really believe that government should be working for folks. And when you watch the federal level and what just happened with just something as simple as electing a new Speaker of the House, right? Like, at the federal level, it's not working on so many days. But to be able to get to work in Massachusetts, where we have bipartisan support of legislation almost across the board all the time, is a really cool place to be.
Yeah, it feels like we're rowing in the same direction.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we everybody agrees on every issue or there aren't arguments, but people are analyzing bills and ideas on the merits, and I think we're all better for that.
Yeah. Is there anything else you're looking forward to heading into your second term? I will warn you that I was warned that your first term you're doing a lot of learning, your second term you think you can walk and you trip a lot, and your third term is the one where you're like, okay, I've
figured it out.
I've got it. But yeah, what are you looking forward to? Are you hoping to be on the same committees? Are you hoping to explore different issues?
So I think one of the things I'm most passionate about is economic development. And I think I have two gateway cities, Fitchburg and Leominster.
And Gardner, that would remind you that.
And I've lost Gardner, actually, in the redistricting.
Gardner. Yeah, but like the region, right, like benefits from.
Absolutely.
And I will get back to Westford and some of the new parts of your district too.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, so I had substantial changes in redistricting to my district, but I think economic development in our gateway cities is really critical for North Central Massachusetts and the rest of our region. One of the things, and I'll break the news on LTV, but I'm going to be the Senate caucus chair of the Gateway Cities Caucus.
Awesome.
And so I think
big shoes with Eric Lesser leaving.
Yeah.
I'm really excited that North Central is going to get some attention.
Yeah, I hope so. And so I think that's an important. So the Gateway Cities Caucus is made up of House and Senate members from all of the state's gateway cities. I think there are 26. And we carry forward our priorities together. And so that it's an important place to give a voice to the issues that are really affecting us here in Fitchburg and Leominster. I think at the top of that list is housing production. We have, and I've met with a lot of developers to see what are the barriers to more housing production in Fitchburg and Leominster. 'Cause we need more housing. So our economy can grow, so prices go down and rents are affordable, so that people can buy homes here in North Central Mass. So one of the things that I'm really excited about reintroducing, and it's something we all fought hard for and lost, was that died at the end of last session or in the last economic development bill, is the Housing Development Incentive Program, which is a tax credit specifically for gateway cities to spur production, right? I think it's a competitive environment. Investors and big developers aren't going to invest in places where it costs more to build than the rents they can get back. And so that's one example of a tool that I think can help spur not just housing growth, but economic growth here in Fitchburg and Leominster, and economies in a region that I think still have so far to go to meet their full potential.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you're taking over on the Senate side of the Gateway Cities Caucus, because it really, I cannot say over the last 6 years what a resource it has been for me as a Gateway City legislator to really understand the issues, and that we are able to speak with a unified voice of 26 communities, way more reps and senators than 26, but to really push and make sure that our communities get the same opportunities as all the other residents in Massachusetts, because there are a lot of missed opportunities for Gateway City residents and challenges. I mean, affordable housing, I just had a great meeting with Senator Feeney about our bill to end homelessness. I mean, Massachusetts is a state that can have a solution for just about everything. And one of the things that's still on the table is we do not guarantee shelter for adults in Massachusetts. We don't say that you're going to have a safe place to go if you lose your housing. And unfortunately, because of the pandemic and the kind of current economic crisis, lots of folks are experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity that had never experienced it. And so I'm really excited to get to partner with the Gateway Cities Caucus on kind of that whole spectrum of housing to make sure that you always have a safe and affordable place to go.
And I think it's a good example of the coalition building that you need to do to be successful in championing anything. It's hard to get attention to your priorities, and your priorities are much more viable when it's 40 other legislators' priority too. So I'm excited about carrying forward that work, and think there's some huge potential to really deliver on some things that are important and can impact people's lives here, specifically in Fitchburg and Leominster.
We've got just a few minutes left, and so I'm wondering, tell me a little bit about, sorry for mixing up that you no longer have Gardner, but we're happy to have Senator Angobi joining the North Central delegation, and Joe Comerford.
Which is great.
It's like the whole redistricting every 10 years for folks who don't realize, The districts really change. I am very lucky. Leominster gets protected because it is the size of a state rep district, so they cannot break us up. And I am very spoiled, and my district did not change. Almost every other legislator's district changed.
I
so
thought
I'm
it was,
sorry. I'm sorry.
I thought it was funny. Like I heard somebody propose, like, how about you split Leominster and Fitchburg, and Mike Kushmerek and Fitchburg can take half of Leominster and keep half of Fitchburg, and I think no, right? That's a bad idea.
Luckily, we have some legal protections at the federal level too. That
That's
like,
right.
We could have called upon those.
Yeah. So I think for my Senate seat, there are a couple of overarching trends that resulted in some pretty substantial changes. But to our west, the Berkshires lost about 100,000 in population. Worcester grew more than anybody thought Worcester was going to grow. I think close to 15%. But between 20 and 25,000 people. So these overarching forces pushed this Senate district, the Worcester and Middlesex district, to the east. So I lost Gardner on the west, I lost Westminster, and gained Ashby, Westford, Groton, and Shirley to the east. So exciting, but I think the beating heart is still those two gateway cities in Fitchburg and Leominster that really do anchor North County here in Worcester County, and again have historically been the anchors and the lifeblood of the entire regional economy.
Yeah, and you have some pretty amazing House colleagues that I admire that have like hopped into your delegation.
That's a huge point. Out in Westford is Jim Arciero, who's the House chair of the Housing Committee, and so
He's fantastic.
It's great to have him as a colleague. And other than that, I don't think I gained any other new reps. So there's Representative Kilcoyne in Clinton, Mike Kushmerek in Fitchburg, Dan Cena in Shirley, and we are still waiting on the official word for Margaret Scarsdale, but hopefully she'll be seated very soon, and looking forward to working with her too, and she'll be really great.
And so for folks who want to get in touch with you, who haven't connected with you yet but have questions, who want to get to know you and your office a little bit more, how do they get in touch with you?
The best is to send our office an email, john.cronin@masenate.gov. Our phone number is 617-422-1230, I think.
That's good. We'll double check if we can put it on the screen.
That's it. At least I didn't give out my cell phone. No. And then you can send us a message on Facebook. Beth Walsh, who's a former Fitchburg City Councilor, is our Director of Constituent Services, and she does regular office hours at senior centers across the district, and she is unbelievable. And so we have a presence in senior centers, but to send an email is the best way to get in contact with our office.
Awesome. And the next 10 days, we're filming this in the middle of our bill filing period, and so for folks who aren't aware, we get 2 weeks to file our bills at the start of a session. It's always nicer when you're coming back and you're returning and you know what you're in for. Like, my heart is going out to the new reps and senators, but it is a hectic time of year. So I'm really excited that you took some time to come onto our show, to fill folks in on what you're working on, and looking forward to a really, really awesome 2023.
Thank you so much, Representative, and thank you so much for your leadership too on the House side, and your friendship and help over the past 2 years as my office got their feet under them, and can't wait to continue working forward together.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So we will be back next month. We actually don't have our guest planned, so we're not gonna tease anyone. But thank you for tuning in, and enjoy the rest of your start to 2023, Leominster.